Welcome to Amalgam Hour, the movie and comic podcast. I'm Robin.
I'm done.
Today, quick video talking about weird ways people make you read comics. And when I say people, I mean mostly Marvel and DC. Except from Image in the 90s, because they apparently needed everything. They wanted all the viewers as well as all the covers with nice lenticular 3D designs and silver embossed and bleh. So we're going to go through a couple of them. And they're slowly going to be getting worse over time. And the last one is a real doozy, which Dan, you've definitely never heard about, so I can't wait. The first one, plain and simple, lying on a cover. Just straight up lying. Just, you've experienced this, haven't you? I feel like everyone has. Where you've read a story and then you look back at, but you don't even think about it. You don't think about the cover until you close the book and then go, wait a minute. Wait, what? I'm going to give a couple examples. Dan, think of some examples as well.
Oh,
some of my least favourite come from Marvel, and it's Marvel events, specifically Contagion and Civil War 2. If you look at those covers, Spider-Man, Peter Parker's Spider-Man, is in a lot of them. In Contagion, he doesn't even appear. In Civil War 2, he appears in one panel.
That's about right.
And it's because, oh my god, Spider-Man sells. Do you know what character appears a lot in Civil War 2? Miles Morales Spider-Man. Do they care? No, no one knows him except from his movie. Yeah, except from his Miles Morales' movie doesn't have an Oscar. No one has ever watched that film. Let's throw Peter Parker on there, you know.
Yeah.
Go on, Dan. You got a few?
Honestly, all I can think of is just Marvel and DC. If Batman or Spider-Man make even the smallest appearance, they're on the cover.
It's exactly that, and I don't mind covers that are abstract in their design. Like, oh, I guess that could happen. That's like, there's probably a Batman cover out there where he's in some sort of trap, or he's in a maze, or he's like falling into a deep well, and then you read the story, and then thematically it makes sense. You know, like in
that scene never appears in the page thing.
Yeah, it never appears within it, but if you think about it on a broader sense, that makes sense. He's trapped in a building, so on the cover we have him trapped in shackles or something, you know? Like in the Court of Owls, I think he's literally trapped in like kind of a maze-like building, but on all the covers he's trapped in like a labyrinth maze, which, you know, makes sense. But then I hate the covers where it's like, this character doesn't appear in here. That never happens once. In this scene, this is what? And you go through it and you never think about it until later on. It's one of those after the fact thoughts.
Yeah.
What I hate as well is, for one, it's a boring cover, but there's a character on the cover who looks like they're being attacked, but you can't see the creature or the villain because it's behind the camera, in quotes, you know? That happens so much and it bugs me, because half the time they're never in peril. And then I'm probably going to name this video Weird Ways of Comics Make You Read, or Weird Comic Gimmicks, whatever. What you could also call this video is Weird Comic Clickbait. Because that's what it is half the time, being like, oh,
yeah,
it's like 100% there's Batman covers where Gotham's blown up, or this, that, or the other, or the Daily Bugle or Planet is blown up, and oh, it's so dramatic. But then, no, the answer is no, it never happens. And this is one of the things where I'd love if people told us covers, specifically they give us issues where it's just a lie, because half the time you can tell when it's a lie. And sometimes this isn't even in covers specifically. Sometimes it's in books on like the last page. If you read Ultimate Spider-Man, every time an issue ends, even if you read in the trade, you can tell because it will be a one-sentence line to spark the next issue, if you get what I mean. There's one Ultimate Spider-Man issues where Nick Fury says something, And I think the line is, he's talking to Spider-Man, I think your dad just started World War III. And you're like, oh, what the fuck does that mean? You go to the next issue, the first page is Peter Parker going, really? And Nick Fury going, no. It's like, what the fuck is that? What does that mean?
That's just taking the piss.
Yeah. And I love it, because it's Brian Michael Bendis who does those books. And every single issue ends that way, which makes sense. Makes you want to read the next one. But they're so clickbaity and just lying to the reader that, oh my god. And what's the story? It's not, I think it's, give me a second, I'm literally looking in my collection now. Death of the Family. Not the original one where Jason Todd died. The one...
Oh, is that the one where Scott Snyder's one?
Yes, Scott Snyder's
Nobody
book.
dies.
In one of those issues, it ends with what look like Jason Todd and the entire Bat family all hanging, and I'm pretty sure they're all hanging. And you're like, what the hell does that mean? Then the next issue comes around and it's like, oh, Batman's like, I'm glad these are mannequins. It's like, oh, fuck off. You don't deserve that. And another one in there is like, you think the entire Bat family has had their faces removed because they're all in gauze and they're about to open plates. And then they take off the gauze and their faces are fine. It's like, oh. You physically just... And I get it, to add suspense, to make you buy another comic. But also, you've lied to me. And that's just disrespectful. I can't be having that. You know? And
yeah.
I think at some point it gets where I will read a comic and expect it. I will expect the cover to lie to me. I will expect the last page to lie to me. I will expect a huge reveal to just be straight up a lie. So it kind of removes the fun from reading it.
Yeah.
Which isn't great for a comic publisher to like... Before I've even opened the book, I'm like, oh, well, this is a lie. This doesn't make any sense. Which isn't fun. But we move. Now, this is one I don't know my opinion on yet. And I think that's because I've never delved into this fandom sort of thing. Variant covers. Do you like variant covers, Dan? Have you experienced variant covers?
Bought one.
You okay?
Seen them?
Yes, I have, in very specific occasions, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But there is such a market for variant covers. Some artists make their entire living off variant covers alone. Which I get, so that's great, and it makes comics sell more, which is better for the industry. But then you also dilute the entire comic book shelf, because you could go to a comic stand, and I can't remember what it was. Usually Captain Marvel has a load of variants. Anytime something big happens in Spider-Man, there's a load of variants. Which isn't great. But then you'll look at the shelf, and it's like, okay, look at this comic. That's a cool comic. And then you look at it, and you're like, oh, okay, that's cool. You put it down. You get the next one that has a different cover. And you're like, oh, it's the same story. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of like filling up more space. And in our local comic shop, they're behind the counter in like cellophane wrapped and everything. And it feels like, ooh, those are special and fancy and worth a lot. They're not. We get, oh, they're rare, sure. And people will have that variant and then send it off to get coded. And then it comes back, oh, it's a perfect 10. You know? Then you might as well sell that on and then retire a millionaire. But then I feel like it takes away so much, because I've seen pictures where people have collected every variant, and it's like 20. I'm like, at that point, you're pushing your luck, Scoob. You know? It's just a bit too far. I get having one variant cover. Or, I wouldn't even say two. One variant cover.
That's what you get.
Yeah. I feel like that makes sense. And have variant covers be incredibly rare. You know? You don't need... Well, this one's if you buy 100, you could find one of it. But if you buy this other variant cover, if you buy 50, you'll find one of it. If you buy 10, you'll find one of this. You know, it's just like a rabbit hole people fall into. And I know people make a business that way, but oh my god. And
Unnecessary.
yeah, and that's the type of thing where I've seen a lot of variant covers where if a movie is coming out, or if, like, we'll talk about this. When Marvel bought the Alien and Predator license, I remember for a few months, almost every comic Marvel produced had a variant cover of the main character fighting an alien. You know, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's exciting to see. Except from if an outsider looks at it, it's like, oh, Spider-Man's fighting an alien in this book, and then you read it and he's fighting the Vulture. It's like, oh, you've just lied to me.
Yeah, it's not that exciting.
Yeah, that's the type of thing where I don't even know. I haven't bought variant covers enough to know if, like, Marvel puts variant cover written across it. You know, they might do, and that would make sense. But as a outsider, if you looked at that book, it would lie to you straight up. Because you don't understand the concept of a variant cover, which makes sense. Oh, go on.
So say what they do a lot with variant covers. If a film's coming out or a show, it's even loosely based or inspired by a comic run.
Yeah.
That comic book will be re-released. The cover will be the film poster.
I hate that. I hate
Some
that with
people
the
look
passion.
at that and think, they did it with Civil War when that came out.
Yeah.
You'll look at it and think, oh, this is really good to read to watch the new Captain America movie.
Yeah.
It's just nothing really to do with it whatsoever.
The worst version of that I've seen, and that could be an entire point within itself, like having a poster replace the cover, is you can get a trade of Watchmen that has Zack Snyder's Watchmen on the front. Which, that film is very decisive, but then to slap that, I bet Alan Moore almost hung himself as soon if he's seen that cover, you know? It's ridiculous. And there are a lot that I've seen before. I'm a big Moon Knight fan, as we know, gotta mention him in every video. There is a cover where Miles Morales was getting a big push, so he appeared in lots of people's covers, makes sense. But he had costumes that were a combination. So there's one cover where Moon Knight is like swinging and Miles Morales is next to him, but Miles Morales is wearing a red hood and like a cloak and that sort of stuff, which is fun, but is it important? No. That's
the time I've really liked it when they've done it. It's recently with the Batman movie. A bit recent.
Okay. I haven't seen that one. Describe.
They've re-released like a box set pretty much with 3 comics that inspired the Batman film. They've released that as a way to give. So I quite liked it as a way to sell more comics.
That's interesting.
Like a great way of saying, this inspired this. If you really like this, you'll enjoy this.
That makes sense. But I'd want
not pushing it as need to read this. It's inspired this.
I'd want it to make sure it says that on the cover, though. You know? Like, have the sort of thing, do you know, on some films where it's like, from the producer of blank, the books that inspired the Batman, you know? Plain and simple on the cover.
Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
On the front, I've got it in my hand now. It says, the Suicide Squad Case Files 1 is a big picture of Peacemaker. You just look at that, you think this is going to be Case Files, this will be really good to read to watch the film.
Yeah.
It's nothing to do with the film. It's just small stories taken from the early days of the characters in the film.
Yeah. That's where the type of thing, yet again, lying to the audience to sell, which makes sense as a business standpoint. Companies will lie. They will bend the truth, this, that, and the other. But with the comic industry, I feel like it's so prevalent that they've made they've made people have livings off of buying variant covers, which are lying and then diluting brands. And for one, I want to think, one day I'll make a video trying to just come up with the idea of how much money is just made to make a Marvel comic, you know? because you've got so many people working on it, and then to add a variant cover artist, and I get it. If it's someone like Alex Ross or Scott Campbell, people who... But then, instead, what they've done, which I like recently, instead of getting them to do variant covers, they just make them do the main cover. Like, I don't know if it's still going, but Iron Man for ages had Alex Ross covers. Dan, you probably know Alex Ross, but you've probably never heard his name. He's the one who does the painterly, like, comic images, and you always see it of realistic Batman and realistic Captain America, and his Iron Man is so sexy because he paints all the metal, so every part of Iron Man is reflecting something from the stuff around him, which is just mwah. So yes, get that on the main cover, because then that'll get me interested, because I see it online, I see it as the main picture everywhere.
It's not going to be the artwork in the comic.
No, and you understand that if you see an Alex Ross cover, because you're like, which he has done comics where the entire interior his style, and
take ages to do though, probably, wouldn't it?
Those are like tomes. You should look at them from like 100 feet away in a museum. Yeah. But just getting off topic, variant covers. Now let's go through.
If you want to go back, what I was saying with that Batman thing they did.
Go on.
I'm looking at it here. Features The Long Halloween, Eco and Other Tales, and Year One. Well, the front is.
Can I just
say? Batman is a big. Go on.
I love every single story there. If you haven't read Batman Ego, go and read that one. Carry on, Dan.
As on the front, it's a picture of Robert Pattinson's Batman, the Batman logo, DC. But next to it, it very clearly states the classic graphic novels that inspired the feature film.
Okay. I'm glad that it states that plain and clear.
It says that bigger than what comics are actually in there. So
okay. That's fair enough, I guess. But unlike the opposite of that is those Alien variants, where you've seen Alien next to your favorite characters and you're like, holy shit, Marvel owns Alien. They could do anything, and then they did nothing except variant covers to just sell you more stuff.
Yeah.
Which, Okay, one by one, we'll go through this list and we'll also give, not a rating, but we'll say whether it's good or bad. Gimmicks can be good, bad. Lying covers are just bad. Lying comic pages, bad. Variant covers, we won't give our opinion yet. I don't have an answer. Just because I've seen variant covers and wanted them. The Miles Morales Moon Knight one. Kinda want it. Got a cool design for Miles Morales. And then a series of covers I love, variant covers. And you've seen me, Dan, stare at these in a comic shop and want them all. The Contagion storyline, where if you get the variant covers of that, it's one building with all the characters, but every cover, if you put it side by side, makes up the building. Now that's a gimmick within itself. Covers that can connect and create a larger scene or just a montage. And I love those. I think it adds something to the cover instead of just trying to sell it to me, you know?
Yeah.
Because now I have a poster. Now I have a piece I could put on my wall and be like, oh, this is interesting. And I have seen loads of that, and I'd want to see more. But then the problem I have with that, why don't you just do it for the main cover? You get the best artist you have with the best idea for that. Because I'm not going to lie, that Contagion variant cover series doesn't have the best art. The main cover artist, mwah, beautiful. If he did that building one, it would be glorious. I would have already bought it. It would be on my wall right now. You know? So there's a give and take with this. And what is and Contagion was in my comic store for ages. It's probably still there now, after however long it's come out. But it only has the variant covers. And it probably has multiple of them. Because with a story like that, which didn't sell great, comic shops now have loads of them because they had to buy both the main series and then the variant. Do you know what I mean? So it's both bad for comic shops, bad for this, bad for the other, but you know. But okay, so what is your opinion, Dan, on variant covers as a whole?
They work, and you do see in like some like graphic novels you can buy variant covers at the back.
Yeah, I do rate that, and
I quite like
I
that.
do expect it. Yeah.
So, because like you've read the book, and then you've got all these nice variant covers. Like,
Yeah.
it's okay. It's like we could have used these as the front cover, but we chose what we gave you. Is what we were working on.
Yeah.
Like that, just don't bother.
That's fair. I'm still iffy about it. And now the next one I'm even more iffy about, except for one reason. Like I said in the intro to this, embossed / silver or gold covers. Now let me explain. During the 90s, right before the collapse of the comic industry by Image, this, that and the other, comic shops would love to add silver foil to the name of the thing, or an entire gold covered image with embossed pictures here and there and this, that and the other. So much so that the comic industry then collapsed afterwards because people were like, oh, these are really rare. Oh, wait, they cost about half as much as I bought for it because there's 1,000 of them. Because demand went up, so did the supply, and boom. Now everyone's got 42 Spawn number ones. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
And I haven't seen these nowadays, which I get after a big collapse, and it probably costs more to do so. Have you ever seen this in the wild, Dan? Like when I say silver or gold, I mean like reflective material on the cover, which have clearly been like stamped on it.
Oh.
Exactly. It's not around a lot anymore. But the only time I would... So clearly this was a gimmick from decades ago now, which clearly worked to have more people buy it, but for the wrong reasons, people thinking it's rare instead. The only time I would...
They'll never read it.
Exactly. People were just buying it and then just sealing it away in a vault, being like, in 40 years, oh, it's going to put my kids through college. The only time I would enjoy it now, and if the audience don't know, we have a webcomic coming out, infernumcomics.com. We one day want to print comics. The only time I would put this on a comic, or not be, I wouldn't say angry, but not feel like I'm taken advantage of, is when I cover for an anniversary issue or something big, you know? A deluxe edition, you know, double size, double thick, that sort of thing. If variant covers all had gold embossed across them, I would hate it. Do you get what I mean? But let's say Batman's 200th year, which I don't even want to think about when that is.
Oh.
Yeah.
How's that 100th? That's closer.
Yes. I can't remember how old these characters are. 100th.
Like 90, I think.
Okay. So, it's 100th anniversary. If a Batman collection came out, which was like year 1, Killing Joke, Dark Knight, blah, 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 and it was like a 500-page tome that was hardcover and this, that, and the other, and it had gold embossed across it, or silver as the Bat logo on the front, sure, that works. I'm just glad that nowadays it's not on every single cover, because sometimes it can ruin the cover, and it may burn my eyes out when I walk into a comic book shop, you know? One reflection through a window on all these silver embossed covers, and I'm blinded. So, you know, that works as well.
That's fair.
So, would you like to see these on covers, Dan?
Oh, really?
That's fair enough.
Wouldn't make me buy it.
Yeah, that's fair. And I don't even think I would buy it either. But I feel like from an artistic standpoint, it looks interesting. You know what I mean?
I wanted it to stand out, then it'd probably catch my eye, but...
That's the exact reason.
It's like the
yeah.
3D covers. Like, catch my eye, but I won't buy it.
Now, Daniel, you've just spoke about our next point: 3D lenticular covers, and by that we mean
Almost like that was planned.
exactly it wasn't. And by that I mean like hard covers, where if you turn the comic itself, it changes image. Everyone's seen it. Everyone's seen it on whatever. But then, I can only think of one time where I've seen that, and it looked actually interesting to me. You know? Have you ever seen this just in the wild?
3D covers.
Yeah.
I have, but it's been a long time.
Yeah. Which makes sense, because it's one of those things, again, like I was suggesting for the embossed, like, silver covers and stuff. Only do it for special things. Marvel did it, I'm pretty sure, for the Marvel Now initiative, and they failed. You couldn't see it correctly, it wasn't working. The only time I've seen it successfully was, I believe, Batman the Flash the Button, where you could turn, like, Batman and he would turn into the reverse Flash. And that works. That makes sense. And this is just going to be a quick thought. Can work. Will I buy it because of that cover? Probably not. I would prefer like a poster or that sort of thing, you know? Now this is one that definitely died with the 90s. Comics coming with like a poster. That's fair. That can still happen every now and again. I haven't seen it a lot. But back in the 90s, comics with trading cards on the front, which I now view as ugly as hell. You know? You might as well slap a top trump on my comic. Because I don't care. Like, trading cards, people still do with them. Yes, sure, whatever. But that industry died around the 90s as well for a reason. So don't start sticking shit onto my covers. In the 90s as well.
It comes off without ripping the cover.
Exactly. That was a problem with DC Comics in the 90s, was that they would come with cards that were 3D lenticular images, but they were stuck to the corner of the comic. So it's like, what is the point? Because I can't take it off.
I get stressed taking off the price tag.
Yeah. I can't take it off. It's useless. It's smaller than the cover itself. And because it's 3D lenticular, if you're not looking at it in the correct way, it can sometimes look blurry and fuzzy and not make sense. So you've just ruined my cover now. But, yes, this is definitely a hate. You know? This is a no, thank you at all. What about you?
My cover.
Yeah, exactly.
If it's like, I'm fine with them doing extra things like that. To have to be something like, if you buy this comic, like when you go to like the checkout,
yeah, I guess,
the person will give it to you.
Or if it was just or if it was just a freebie inside the comic, like the poster.
Like it's tucked in the page.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine.
Like newspapers do.
Yeah, like on the last page, you turn it, and then a little trading card pops out, or a little 3D holographic thing that's like a business card size. Yeah,
somebody buys you a comic and the receipt falls out.
Exactly. It's like it's not a surprise. Or a poster that works as well. Even though sometimes I'm like, it's not a freebie because I'm still paying for the comic. Just this time you've stuck an additional piece of paper in it. You know, it's they've got to pick and choose. Now this is one that I kinda want. I want at least one. A glow in a dark cover. You don't have any of these, do you, Dan?
I have no more covers.
Yeah. Don't have any embossed in 3D. No. I have covers. No variants. The only time I've seen this effective is on one Ghost Rider issue, where it's just his face, but the flames are glow in the dark. Cool.
I bet that looks sexy.
Exactly. You put that on the wall, that's nice. But it gets...
work with some characters.
Yeah. I think there's a Spectre one where in the darkness you can see his cape and you can see like hidden images inside of it. That is hot. Yeah. That works. If I seen that every
Bet they
time,
tried it with Spider-Man or Batman, didn't they?
100%, 100%. There's no doubt about it.
It just doesn't work with those characters.
Superman, Spawn, anything, you know.
Superman could work, but it'd have to like just be like his laser vision or something.
I guess, but that's the
That
thing.
could look cool, but
There's always the thing where glow in the dark just becomes overused, overplayed. It's like the embossed thing, but kind of on another level because it's rarer for one, and I think it's worse in some sense because I don't think I've ever seen a glow in the dark thing and I haven't known this glow in the dark immediately. Because it's always like a weird tint of green, like a
it's
light
a really
green
weird
colour. Yeah,
It only looks good in the dark.
for the Spectre,
honest,
it could work.
With comics, to be honest, are you gonna pick it up when it's dark?
Exactly. The
You're
only
gonna have
reason,
the light on to see.
the only reason that would look good if it's hanging up, and that gets to the point where it's like, it's no longer a comic, it's a poster, it's a mantelpiece, it's a rare thing. So it doesn't work all the time.
With some characters, but
Yeah, exactly. This is an interesting one that I've only found out recently. And I think this worked with Deadpool, or there's some comic where it did, and I'm pretty sure it's mostly Marvel. Comics that came with QR codes that then played a soundtrack for the comic. And I feel that's an interesting concept in itself. That you're reading, and people do this where they read and they put on like ambient noise or like a background score, that sort of thing. Obviously, it doesn't have words, because words playing while you're reading, that's going to fuck you up in every royal way. But this is an interesting concept of having a soundtrack. The only problem I have with it is, what if I'm a slow reader? What if I'm looking at this page a bit too long because there's lovely artwork? What if I'm reading it too quickly because the story hasn't hooked me? Yeah.
What's the thing? Like, you read a line or you get distracted, so you reread a section or something.
Exactly. And
I've done quite a bit.
Yeah. It's going to mess it up, and I don't exactly know how it works. Maybe it's just like an ambient thing that conveys a theme or something. You read a Batman book, it's got like Batman the Animated Series choir in the background with like rain falling, and that's just it for the entire thing.
But to be honest, with that, the only way I'd say you really do that is like audiobook comics.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say. Is digital.
Yeah.
Audio works, like an audiobook version. I find almost like a motion comic type thing, but digital is where it could really work. Where it's like, and yes, we're recording this after the whole Comixology collapse, which one day we'll make a video about, because by God, we'll have a good rant. Exactly. If another company came out with, what was it called? Guided View. But every time,
I love Guided View.
Exactly, it's beautiful. But if there was
figured it out now.
Yeah, that's good. If there was a score attached to that Guided View, so if you went to a panel, sometimes you hear like a dun dun dun. It could be funny. It could work. It could add atmosphere to the page.
Imagine me sat and working.
Exactly. You're reading a comic just on your break, and then all of a sudden your colleagues just hear dun 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 as Spider-Man's taking off his mask in front of Aunt May. My God. And it could add drama, but it could also take away from the comic, because if I'm thinking in my own head and I don't want an outside source like changing how I'm feeling or that sort of thing.
It sounds like when I'm trying to read a comic, I prefer it to be like dead silent.
Yeah, which works. I'm a person who
concentrate on it.
I'm a person who hates dead silence. But if I'm reading, there better not be a noise in this household, or I'm a cry.
If it's dead silent, and you're reading a book, like a comic, you can picture it better. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Given us sounds.
A soundtrack could work in the same way it does for a film, where it makes it more interactive and it adds atmosphere or that sort of thing.
You're watching a film, every character doesn't sound like yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. That's why it can distract, and also that's why I'm saying it would work better for digital, because if it was physical book, I've got to now find that soundtrack. I've got to get
Yeah.
it playing. I now can't have my
Just
phone
an
on at
extra
all.
task.
Exactly. And on a comic, sometimes I just like to whip them out, quickly read, done. I've had a spare 10 minutes. Boom. I've read 3
Read
issues.
an
I
issue
put it
and
away.
then-
Exactly. But now I've got to get a soundtrack up. No, thank you. So, what's your thoughts on that? Could it work? Would it work? Would you buy a comic because of that?
I wouldn't buy a comic because of it, but if it was like an added extra,
Yeah.
say I don't buy them, but if you bought an audiobook comic,
Yeah.
and then you were like reading that or listening to it or whatever,
Or
it was like going in front of you,
yeah.
and yeah,
Or if it was yet again a freebie. You open a comic without even knowing, and then a little sticker falls out. It says, "Read this comic with a soundtrack," and a little QR code scanner. Oh, it's a YouTube video, like a hidden
I'll
YouTube.
throw that
vid.
in the bin.
Yeah. Or it could be interesting to view once. It may be more of an experiment, and I don't think they do it anymore. Obviously, I think it was like a
Probably not.
one-time thing, and then they were like,
Probably
no one
too
really cares.
expensive.
Yeah. What would be interesting is if every Batman comic just came with that sticker on the back. And it's the same theme no matter what. You know, it's the same like atmospheric noise, rainfall, atmospheric stuff.
Oh, it's raining in Gotham.
Exactly. So if it was the same across the board, that could work possibly. As if it's not so
Yeah.
much a soundtrack, more just a background noise to get you in that mood. Could work. Could work.
It could work if it was like a page had like down sort of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You got like skip along, but
Yeah.
just extra tasks.
Exactly.
Just want to sit and read.
Speaking of extra tasks now. No. Yeah, again, perfect flowing. Now this is something that has had a resurgence recently. But there's one comic story where we all know this happened. Letting readers vote on stuff within a comic. That is a gimmick in itself, because you put that idea out there, people then vote, people then pick up that comic to see it. Even people who haven't voted will pick up that comic just to see how people
You all
voted.
know the iconic thing there that happened.
Yeah.
Certain Jason Todd got wrecked.
He got absolutely shreked because... And apparently it was just because...
People didn't like it.
Yeah. It was apparently just because one guy made like an answering machine type thing where it just called the number several times. Which, whatever.
To be fair, it's now one of the most popular comic books.
Exactly.
Ever. If he lived,
But-
it probably would have sucked.
That's the thing. But we don't know that, and it kind of detoured the story, you know? Because it's like, oh, now Jason Todd's dead. There was no build-up to this fact. It was just one of the editors was like, oh, this is
That's
an
what I
idea.
kind of like about it.
I guess, yeah.
There are probably two versions of the story.
100%.
If you really looked, you'll probably find the version of the story that...
Yeah. There's definitely...
I think it was in between issues that it happened, wasn't it?
Yeah, and there's two covers of what if Jason Todd lived and what if he died.
Yeah.
Because the artist had to do both just in case. And
So I bet you the people making it didn't make up their mind on what they wanted to happen.
I guess, but yet again, it's
And they
a
were
gimmick.
like, let's let the fans decide.
Yeah, but it's also a gimmick to then make that comic be sold. And like I said, this has had a resurgence recently because in X-Men comics now, the main X-Men title, I think it's once every year now, they are doing a vote out on Twitter, I believe, which will let people cast who is the main X-Men team. That is interesting, not something I care about, but it could
be
work.
like, oh, which characters do you want to see, and like...
Exactly that. It's like they have a number of characters and you get to vote, and then out of like 6 or 7.
I like that.
Yeah.
Because that means we're not just going to always... Because you know what they get like? They're like, oh, they always have the same team all the time.
Which that's why it works. That's why it has worked recently, and it's interesting. Not something I'd want on every single one of my books, because it's kind of like, as a reader, you're like, I just want to read it and have a natural progression of the story. I don't want stuff shoved in because a fan voted on it, you know?
It's new. You're doing like... Say like they're doing like a team, and they want to decide what characters are going in there.
Sure.
Got their vital ones for the story, but they want other characters, and then the fans vote.
if it's going to be a free-for-all, like, let's say it's an Avengers comic coming out, and it's like, when a new Avengers comic comes out, like by a different writer, there's always a team shake-up. And that usually doesn't matter. It could be Ghost Rider. It could be Moon Knight. It could be this, that, and the other. You know?
Every other issue, there's a different person on the
Exactly.
Avengers.
It could work. I would love to see a comic by one of the big two. Even we could do this, Dan, one day. Write this down. Great idea. Have a comic where that is the main idea. You know?
Changes all the time.
Yeah. Where, or it's like an audience participation to the story. Where it's like every single one of your audience has helped write this thing because you've put out votes and you've put out polls and ideas and got feedback and stuff. It could work.
Done right.
Done right, exactly. Now this is one that I can only ever find one example of. And it's a Batman Penguin book, I believe, or a Batman Riddler Joker story, where it was 3D. And I don't mean 3D lenticular, I mean you had to put on blue and red glasses, and then you went through the pages, and it was 3D.
Good.
I bet it looked ugly as hell. Because the blue and red 3D barely ever works. Doesn't work successfully at all. You know?
Hate 3D anyway. So
Exactly. But then,
headache.
if you take the glasses off, what does the page look like? It's got red and blue lines all over it.
Blurry mess.
Yeah, I'm not going to speak about this a lot. It's an interesting idea, and I feel like it could work in maybe an indie book or something where it lends to the story. You know?
This one that'll probably never work.
Yeah. I think the only way I feel like it could be effective if there was a fourth wall breaking character who that was the main gimmick. You know?
He took the piss out of those two.
Yeah. And that he's 3D and everything else isn't. So even if you take the glasses off, it still makes sense because he looks like that red and blue silhouette in the universe. That could work, but it's still going to be ugly as hell. Now, this is the second to last one. So get ready for that last one. Prepare yourself. Now, this is one I can only find one for it. This is very simple. It's a... Now, I can tell you the exact issue. Man of Steel number 30 is where Superman fights Lobo. Fair enough.
Yeah, fine.
The cover is a wraparound cover of Metropolis with nothing on it. And you're like, that's strange. Until you open it up and it comes with stickers that you can put on to
make your own cover type of thing.
Where you can stick to the cover and you can make an action scene with Lobo and Superman and some of the side characters. Is that worth it at all?
No.
That is something I would find in the post office for a children's magazine. You know?
It's like when you have like a build your own farm type of thing.
Yeah. It's like, I've got fridge magnets and they'll attach to this book. Yeah.
The only problem with that is it's like, this is done. That's your cover for this book now.
I guess. I don't know if they were removable or whatever, but still. If you don't have them on, it leaves you with an ugly cover of a city. And if you do have them on, it doesn't look great. It won't look great because they're static stickers, whatever. I just want to quickly mention that. It's not something I'd like. It's not something I do. What are you thinking?
Be good. It wasn't a cover. It was its own thing.
I guess that could be fun.
That crap you buy at a post office.
Exactly. Maybe for a kid's comic, and that's about it. Now, this is the last one. This is the big one. This is the thing where it all goes off the rails, and you'll be confused, and the audience will be confused, and I'll be confused, and I'm reading
Wake
it.
me up when you're finished.
Yeah. Way up until you're confused. Now, there's a book out there called the Squadron Supreme, which is Marvel's version of the Justice League. Now, this is the last one, like I said, so just to wrap it all up, kept the craziest one for last. And the writer of that book, I don't know whether he died or... Yes, because it wasn't what... Yeah. He died, and then I'm 95% sure his ashes was thrown into the printing press while a trade version of Squadron Supreme was being created.
You need to stop.
Yes. So I believe it was his ashes or his blood, one of the two. That
It's a line you don't cross.
So if you have that comic, there is someone's ashes or their blood within it.
I would, even if I was really excited for that comic, that would put me off buying it.
That's interesting, because, yeah, I don't know whether
like,
I don't know how I'd react to it.
I don't want to be reading a comic and thinking, oh, while I'm touching these pages, this is a man's ashes.
That feels
blood or whatever it was.
That feels more like a false reason to buy it. You know, like. Yeah. Tony Hawk, the skater, is doing that with his skateboards now, where he's putting blood in the wheels and stuff. You know, it's just a crazy gimmick that I kind of want to do one day.
It's just a bit.
It sounds incredibly ucky. Yeah.
It's like, isn't it? If he's died, unless like. If he asked for that, but
I'm pretty sure it was like his last wish or something, or his family okayed it, but still,
it's like somebody like, imagine just like telling your grandkids like, oh yeah, your granddad, whatever, he couldn't scatter his ashes, but here's a comic. This is him.
Yeah, and it's not like we've thrown his ashes into a river or into his favorite place, whatever. It's in a book.
Thrown it into a printer.
It's into a printer, it's into a book that people will throw away, that people will forget about, that people will stuff in an attic.
Dirt on your page and wiped away, and then found out it was his ashes.
Yeah. Well, it was not even like that. It wasn't like turned into it wasn't like one speck was in every book. It was like turned into the pulp of the page itself. I kind of like it, and I don't know why. No. It sounds morbid and gross, and I would love to do it for a horror comic. It would be fun.
Certain line you don't cross.
Okay. That's an interesting interpretation. Like,
that is definitely way over the line.
Every time someone comes on to write Batman, I want their actual blood within the book. Otherwise, I'm not buying Batman.
You can put a rest in peace in the back.
Yeah. You can put in memorial
that's where
too.
You stop.
Okay. Well, we know Dan's opinion. My opinion is, want to do it. Don't really care about the book. Now, what's your opinion?
But you don't make a man crispy and then put him in my book.
See, I told you it would confuse you. It would apparently make you enraged.
I want the man who came up with that idea to burn.
Well, I'm pretty sure he did.
We made him in real life, alive.
Okay, finally time to wrap up this video. Now, I want to know about a couple of other gimmick ideas or what people have seen in books to make them buy it, other than lying and stuff. And there's a couple of others. There's obviously audio comics, but that's another thing. And there's like comics where you can pull pages out and it's like pop-ups and whatever. So there's loads more. Tell us about it. And tell us your opinions on the blood or cremation in the comic. Because clearly Dan's enraged by it. So I want to know other people's opinions. And then while you're here, give your opinion about the podcast by liking, subscribing, whatever, commenting. I don't know what people do here. Or you can go to our website where, like I said earlier, we post our webcomic, Hero of an Unsound Mind, about how to quickly describe it, a superhero trapped within an asylum because she's murdered a lot of people. So if you want to read that, go to infernumcomics.com. And it should be the first thing you see on there. And I'll stop. What's the word? Sharing? Okay. Stop. Plugging. That's it. I'll stop plugging ourselves and say thank you for listening.